It is always such a nice feeling to rediscover something that I once loved, but that had fallen by the wayside for some reason or another. In this video, I want to share with you a design that I used to use a lot. You can see it here in the background of this drawing. And I also have it in so many other of my drawings, and I've loved it so much. You can see it here. And for some reason, I just stopped using it. There were just so many other designs and patterns that I wanted to use, so I just forgot about using this one. You can see it right here as well in the background. And occasionally I would come back to it when I had time, but I forgot how it felt to really use it, and I even forgot why I liked it so much. So I'm just going to grab one of my pages here. I'm going to open it up. I have this drawing here that I had started and I just didn't know how to finish, so I'm going to use that space that's left in the center to show you this again. Now, some of you may already be familiar with this. It's a design that's used by so many people, and it is actually such a simple design. And yet, the magic of it is that depending on how you use it, it can actually be really complex, very complicated, very intricate. And so that's exactly what I love about it so much. It can show so much personality, and it can be used so many different ways. So I'm pretty much just setting up the space right now. I'm just using this water-based marker that I have here. It's just one that I like to use whenever I really feel like filling in large spaces with black. So that's all I'm doing here. And I'm just trying to think of which corner I want to get started. So I'm just going to use this top left. And I'm just using a regular pen now. So the simplicity of this design is that you're just going to start off with some very gently curved lines. And there's really no planning to this, at least not when I do it. And then I just add more gently curved lines. You'll notice they're hugging each other, they're very close. And I'm just going to allow these lines to follow each other's curvature. And I'm very randomly, and I do mean randomly, going to allow them to touch at the edges. So you'll notice one line might be long, another might be short. And I'm just going to keep adding them. I'm not going to think about any kind of design or any pattern. I'm just continuing to add more lines. And what I'm going to allow my mind is to just let it flow. The design is going to flow, and my hand will soon catch up to that. So even though when I first start a drawing like this, I might not know where I'm going with it, you'll notice that after just a handful of lines, it starts to develop its own personality. So if you decide to draw something like this, or if you already draw something like this, you might know, or you might recognize that where the personality for this drawing comes from is in how closely you draw the lines. Are they going to be very tight? Or are they going to be very far apart from each other? You could also vary the length. So if the lines are very, very, very long, it's going to make it look much different. You can also change it a lot by changing the curvature of the lines. So are those lines going to be really straight, or are they going to wind around and curve really dramatically? So as you can see here already, I'm creating a whole lot of different textures just from varying the way that those lines behave. And the entire time I'm just letting those lines hug each other, one line after the other. Just choosing different places where they're going to meet up. And I suppose that personally, I really just don't try not to create corners, I guess. I don't like corners. Mostly because I'm just trying to make it look as smooth as possible. So if I can, I try to eliminate any corners, and everything just tries to meet up smoothly. So you'll see here I'm finding any place that looks like it's going to make a corner, and I try to just start working some some of these lines out from there. And again, they're flowing. They're just kind of growing. And sometimes I just decide to start adding lines in different places. I've always found that when I'm doing this kind of design, if I try too hard to plan it out, it all turns out terribly wrong. And so when I use it now, I just find an open space and I just start filling it, just one line at a time. I start on one side and I work my way over. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just slowly adding all of these curved lines. You'll notice I'm coming into a corner, so I'm just curving my lines and then filling in the rest. I'm just trying to make it look like it vanishes in there. And in this corner that's right here, I'm just going to start making more lines to flow out from there. And in truth, I'm really not sure why I stopped using this one so much. Every time that I see other people use it, when I'm kind of going through Instagram and I see other artists create just these gorgeous drawings with these. I love it every time. Whether it has color in it or if it's just black and white. Sometimes I've seen images of things that were rendered, so maybe with AI or using a computer or even some kind of printer. And it's just so striking. I love it every single time, and yet I keep forgetting to go back to it, and I don't know what it is. So as I'm drawing this, I'm really just thinking about where it is that my thoughts go when I'm creating. And so right now I'm keeping things simple. And I'm trying to just appreciate how much can really be done with simple lines. And I know I feel like I say that a lot. I feel like I'm always saying that they're just simple lines, and often they are. But I think this is about as simple as it gets. You notice it's just lines. They're just curved. They're just flowing. And yet, it appears to be complicated. It appears complex. And so, of course, I can't help myself, so I start thinking of quantum particles. Whenever I'm doing this, it reminds me of the fabric of reality, of how everything is connected, everything's moving, everything's flowing. Just like time itself, it never stops. I almost imagine myself just drawing this forever. What a strange universe that would be, where I start one line and I make another and I make another and I just go on and on forever. But of course, I'm not going to do that. It's just an interesting thought to consider. So right here, I'm just preparing this area, just adding some ink to the edges just so that I can continue adding some of that design in there. I really am going to fill the entire background with it. And it does get a little difficult to fit them into those little remaining areas, but I'm just trying my best to get them to fit in there. So you'll notice that I'm curving them. I'm doing my best to not use straight lines, not because I don't have to. There are no rules about this, but simply because I want to keep that feeling in the drawing of flow. I want it to look like it's flowing. So there I just added that additional little space. Just going to fill in those last few lines. If I had an even smaller pen, I would probably be able to fill them in even more tightly in there. I could take hours just doing it. And so when I look at this design, I remember some of those drawings that I used to do when I was in high school, and how at the time I just really loved to draw hair. Whenever I did portraits, I loved doing the hair, and this is so much like that, except at the time I used to use pencils and charcoal to do it. But it is a very similar process. So here I'm going to try something that I haven't done in a while. And so you see I already have my water brush here kind of loaded with it. And all that this is I filled it with water and then added a handful of drops of India ink. And so you see what I'm doing here is I'm just using that watered down ink. And I'm trying to remember about how many drops of ink I put in there. I think it was about 14 drops or so. I tried a bunch of different amounts, but I believe that this one has about 14 drops of ink in there, and the rest is just water. So it's very, very watered down. And so this very light ink, I'm just going around and just adding it to the edges here. So anywhere where it looks like it's an edge or a corner, just adding some of this. And I'm trying to be very quick because this isn't watercolor paper, so it's probably going to soak up a lot of water, and I don't want it to make a mess on the other side. So I'm just being really gentle. And you'll notice actually that when it starts off, it looks much darker than it's going to be when it's done. Once it dries, that color softens up a whole lot, which is actually really nice. It gives it a very, very soft shadow, which I like a lot. And so once that happens, I might actually go back and give it another layer in any spots that I want to be a little darker. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to accentuate that kind of flow. And I'm just going to take a minute to come in here real quick and add some of this to a few other spots on my little doodles here. It might be nice. So for any of you who have also done this kind of thing, let me know how you feel about this design. It can be really addictive. I feel like in the past, I used to do this pretty much all the time. It used to be my go-to drawing. And there's a reason for it. It's incredibly therapeutic. It is incredibly relaxing. And I guess just recently I've been discovering so many other drawings, so many other designs that I just haven't done this one. So here's what it looks like once that ink wash dries. You'll notice that the shadows it created are very, very soft. And it's exactly what I was looking for. So here it is. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. So this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad that you are here and that you joined me. And I hope you have an amazing day.